Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday, and usually I'm doing a live stream, but today I decided I was going to try something different, and I am pre-recording the topic for today. Today I'm going to talk to you about vocology. And what is vocology, and why do we care? So vocology is the study and the science of the voice. And in its broadest terms, it could be vocalization from any species, but most vocologists are mostly interested in the human voice, but we also will study birds and frogs and other animals to see how they relate, how they're similar and different to human vocalizations and what we can learn from these different species. So the reason why this is an important topic today is because I'm getting ready to travel up to Salt Lake City at the end of this week to finish my training at the National Center of Voice and Speech's Summer Vocology Institute in Vocology. That's a mouthful. So I'm going to be journaling and chronicling and posting about my journey while I'm up there, but I thought it might be really interesting for those of you that are interested to know a little bit more about what vocology is and why do we care. So basically, in a nutshell, I started my vocology training 2 summers ago. I was going to finish it last summer, and then of course, that whole COVID thing happened. So it got canceled, and so I am so excited to be able to go up and finish it this year and finish what I started. It's an 8-week program. The first 3 weeks, which is what I was able to do in 2019, was all about anatomy of the vocal tract and also physics, how air flows, how air reacts to resistance. That's important because, of course, we are an air-powered machine. We are an air-powered instrument as singers. And also we learned about how the vocal folds moved, their behavior, how they move against resistance, how the air and the voice interact with each other. And we also learned a lot about the different vocal pathologies. Now, a vocologist is different than a speech language pathologist, and it is different than an ear, nose, and throat doctor or laryngologist, which is a voice specialist. You could be a medical doctor and also have vocology training. You could be just a medical doctor. You could be just a vocologist. In my cohort, when I was there before, there was a laryngologist. There were also speech language pathologists, and there were a good number of people like me who were voice teachers who wanted to better understand the science behind the voice. And this is important for singing teachers because it really helps us understand and more accurately assess, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? Because a lot of times what we feel doesn't necessarily match what the science is and what's actually happening in the body. So the more information that we have about what's actually happening, we can connect those dots a lot better when we're assessing someone who's singing. And then we can better diagnose what we're hearing and seeing and better help them problem solve and get to an optimal solution for their voice, which of course means healthier singing, better sounding voice, and being able to reach whatever their vocal goals are without hurting themselves, which, if those of you that know me, that's always my goal, is that we want you to sound amazing without hurting yourself. So that's what this vocology training helps with. And there are people that come from, like I said, many different backgrounds. So I am not a medical doctor. I am not, it is not part of my scope of practice to be able to diagnose vocal injuries, nor can I rehabilitate vocal injuries. That is something that is done by medical doctors and speech language pathologists together in conjunction. But where I come in is if someone is through the end of, they've finished their medical interventions and they've gone through speech therapy and they are now ready to start working back on building their voice. that's when they would come and see me. So I would work perhaps with the medical team at the tail end of the journey. For some people, the doctor says it's okay for you to go and work with the vocal coach as part of your work back under medical supervision. And so then I'm a little bit more part of the team, but they give the parameters of the rehabilitation. I just work on the singing part of it based on what the doctor tells me. So that's how I fit into that part of the rehabilitation process. That's really important to know because I don't have the same type of training as a speech language pathologist and a medical doctor. So anyway, this summer I'm going to be in Salt Lake City for the next 5 weeks, and I will be completing my Vocology training at that time. I'm planning to chronicle and journal it and post along the way. So those of you that are interested in learning more about Vocology and the type of training that I'm going to be receiving can follow along with me and get a snapshot of what we're learning. And this next 5 weeks, we're going to be looking at instrumentation. How can we measure the voice in all these different ways using software, using stroboscopy, using external devices that you can attach to the neck so that they can sense the vibration and muscle engagement and all sorts of different things in the voice. And how do we interpret the measurements that we receive? What can we accurately assess? And then how do we use that as a teacher going forward? So that's what the next 5 weeks of my life is going to be. And I am just thrilled to be in such brilliant company of my fellow students, my peers, and also the teachers. Kind of reads as a who's who when you read who's going to be presenting at this conference. It's not a conference. It's actually college credit. It's graduate level credits. So yeah, it's going to be an adventure, and I am inviting everyone to come along and accompany me on the journey and see what I learn. And I will be posting, like I said, along the way. So let's talk about why is it important? And why do you care as a singer or as a voice teacher? Why should we care about vocology? So I mentioned this a little bit a couple minutes ago. So what we feel inside our body is not always what actually is happening. So a lot of you know I have a ton of breath training, and so I'm going to go into my breathing coordination background to give an example of this. So when someone is talking about support, and I always use air quotes for that because support is a word that it's not very, very precise in what it means, but when we're talking about how we manage the pressures within our body when we're singing, different people will feel different sensations. And it has to do with their awareness, their own personal level of body awareness. So some people, when they're going to sing a high note, the pressure inside their body is going to be higher. That's just the way it works because of the laws of physics and acoustics. And they may feel a very strong sensation in their low back and in their pelvic floor. So they go, oh, okay, I must engage my pelvic floor and my low back in order to reach those high notes and perform them in a supported manner or whatever term they like to use. So if they're a teacher, then they may say, okay, student in front of me, you're going for the high note. This is what you do. You need to engage your pelvic floor and, open your low back. And the student may have zero understanding of what that means. And then they just kind of, okay, I'm going to do my best. But it's not really what that student actually needed. The real answer is we want circumferential, evenly distributed load, basically. So we want to feel in all the different areas, but maybe the person who's teaching feels it mostly in their pelvic floor and their low back. But that's just because that's where their sensitivity and their sensations are. Another teacher may have greater sensation in their abdominal wall. So they'll say, really lean and, push into that piano. And they are, again, it's just one-dimensional or sometimes two-dimensional. You know, they'll say you need to feel, one of my teachers said he had a teacher that used to always say, you need to feel flowers, you needed to feel flowers under your armpits. And he was like, what does that even mean? You know? And as I was building my circumferential pressure management, I started to feel sensations in my rib cage up high underneath on the side in my armpits. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's what that teacher meant to him. But until I felt it, I didn't know it because I had very little sensation. My rib cage was actually quite rigid from some misunderstandings that I had about what it meant to manage the breath pressure. So in Vocology, this is why it's important. If the teacher understands it is a circumferential, it is three-dimensional, top, bottom, side, front, back, kind of an equation, then they can look at the student and they can have the student feel in different places on their torso and ask them, where do they feel the sensations? Where do they not feel sensations? And try to bring them into better balance to feel what needs to happen in that particular student. So that's one example from using my background in breathing coordination, and different people have different backgrounds, of course, so their knowledge will be deep in some areas and not as deep in other areas. And the goal for Vocology is for us to have as much education in as broad a scope as we can, so that we can accurately assess as many different things in the voice as possible as a voice practitioner, as a singing teacher. Now, SLPs and laryngologists may apply it slightly differently, but that's why it's important to me, because I don't want to be guessing when I'm working with a person, well, it might be this, and I think it might work because this worked for me. That's a recipe for disaster. We really want to know as best we can what exactly is happening in front of us, how can we diagnose it, and then it doesn't take away the idea of exploration and experimentation. That is a crucial part of voice training, because every person is going to have a different and unique experience in their own body. What we know as vocologists is what the science informs us, what we know from the different aspects of how the body works together, but how it manifests in the individual is individual. And so our job as voice teachers who are vocologists is to help guide that person into finding what that means in their own body. So it's super fun and exciting. It gets messy because there is experimentation and exploration and discovery, and we're trying to find this balance point from science, which we like to think of as very black and white, but it gets very finger painting-ish through the process to find that balance. But it's super fun, very rewarding, and I can hardly wait to share with everybody about my journey along the way. So thanks for joining me, and keep an eye out. I'll be posting on YouTube and also on all of the different socials, Facebook, Instagram, and when I can, I will also be posting on TikTok things that we can get into a TikTok format. If you're interested in learning more about my journey with Vocology, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you never miss a new video. That's it for now. See you guys later.